Welcome to JSA TV Europe and our live two-day event on 2023 predictions. I'm Jean-Marc Lehmann. Joining me today is Alex Brew, Regional Director for Northern Europe at Vertiv. Alex, thank you so much for taking the time to talking to us. It's been an incredibly busy year across Europe, especially within the region that you cover, Northern Europe. So I want to maybe paint a picture of what have been the biggest events this year that will have a long-lasting impact in the sector, especially within the region that you work within.
Sure. It's great to be here. Great to join you, Joe. Thank you. Thanks for the invite. Yeah, look, I think that obviously we were aware of some fairly significant global events that have taken place this year, right? Without naming specifically what they are, but there's some obvious ones that come to mind, and they've had a dramatic impact on our industry, as they have many others. I think sort of primarily, if we wind the clock back to the beginning or the end, of 21, in fact, when we were really entering the start of that post-COVID era, really the biggest impacts that we were feeling at the business at that point was the strains on supply chain, right? The world was waking up, demand was increasing, and the raw material provision simply wasn't mobilized and online to deal with that acceleration in demand. That had a really substantial impact on our business. It had an impact on our customers. We had to work very closely with them in order to mitigate and minimize the impact of those disruptive trends that were registering at all different levels within our business and theirs as well. That's really changed the shape of how we do business, particularly with a lot of our major customers, but also with others. In many respects, it's kind of elevated us and brings us to the table far earlier when we're engaging with them on projects, timelines for particular data center builds that they're having to do. And we have incredibly open, incredibly transparent dialogue around the challenges that are facing customers in terms of their ambition to build new sites, to populate new sites, and the availability of the engineering solutions that we can offer them in order to do that. So the positives, I think, are very much that kind of, like I say, elevation of status, the partnership-led sales sort of methodology now that we have as a result of all those headwinds. And ultimately, we've come through it. Business is incredibly strong. The region is doing really well. We're capturing new clients, we're growing existing ones, and I think generally we're recognized as a key vendor within the space. So
it's been definitely an interesting year, and I mean it's been an industry-wide impact when it comes to supply chain. But on top of what you said around partnerships as well, I think it made our industry even plan more ahead. This is known to be an industry that plans well ahead anyway, but I think this all made it plan even further ahead, several years ahead.
Exactly that, right? We've had to work incredibly hard to secure the availability of the key components to guarantee the availability of the products that our clients need, right? But likewise, they're also having to work very hard with us to make sure that the orders are in place, as us featuring a part of their supply chain, for equipment that isn't necessarily typically looking to be deployed in the traditional timeframes that we would expect, and that presents really unique challenges to us as well as a business, right? There's a heightened level of risk that we can carry in terms of working that way with customers, but transparency is key, right? You talk about the risks that we have as a business, and the risks that they're trying to mitigate, and as long as you can understand and agree and respect one another's positions, then we've found that there's a great openness with our clients to work to overcome those challenges together, and that's what's led to what has been a very successful year for us.
Yeah, I think together really is the key word, because I mean the beauty of the ugliness of this whole situation is that everyone was in it at the same time, and at the same level. Everyone struggled, no matter if you're big or small. Everyone struggled during this period. But as we go into 2023, I mean the supply chain conversation is still going on. There's still some people struggling with it. So how do you kind of expect that to change over in 2023, and what other things do you think will happen next year that could have a good impact in the market?
So I think the situation is definitely far more under control, right? We will not arrive back at where we were 18 months ago in terms of that equipment availability, but there's a very common understanding of that, within the industry now, and we've all collectively adapted, us, our clients, our supply chain, other members within theirs, to work within what is now kind of the new normal, if that makes sense, in terms of data center delivery and projects and the like. And I think as we look towards next year, really for us, 2023, the Nordics is a super strategic part of Northern Europe. I think a lot of the issues that we've seen last year, power, availability, continuity guarantees, etc., have really strengthened the user case for development in the Nordics now, both from the availability standpoint, but also the sustainability angle as well. The construction methodologies there, the way in which you can embrace greener technologies because of the climate and so on and so forth. That's really strengthening the Nordics user case. From an end user utilizing colos or for some of the major clients that may look to build themselves. So for us, we've got a sort of real heightened focus on that area, and making sure, of course, that we're positioning ourselves to service those clients appropriately. London, of course, will continue to retain its position as one of the key markets for us. And we're still seeing a number of landmark developments, many of which we've been working on over the course of the last 12 months and are due to come online next year, which will see it retain that position. So we don't see that changing. And the other region for us, of course, or the key market within the Northern Europe segment for us at least, is Dublin and Ireland. And that's faced a really unique set of challenges because of the sheer size of the data center industry there relative to the total available power that the country consumes. I think it's something like 14% that the data center consumption of the overall electrical consumption of the region now, or that may be a 21 figure. And so that in itself is presenting really unique challenges to them. And what we're seeing there is new government legislation around the adoption of greener, more sustainable practices. They don't obviously want to discourage data center development, but the nature and the rate at which it's developing is meaning that clients are having to think a little bit differently about their facilities and how they can complement the local community. Data centers they have a high amount of potential in terms of how they can interface and offer some of their byproducts to support local communities. So you have things like district heating. You have the possibility to use grid supplementary sort of power connecting methods to help alleviate the stress on the grid and so on and so forth. So we're working in the background to make sure that our technologies complement the changes in governance or potential new legislation that may be coming over the hill, to ensure ultimately that there are no roadblocks in terms of the adoption of these sort of greener and more sustainable building practices that will continue or enable the industry to continue to develop and grow. So that's a really key aspect for us, is making sure that our technology stays ahead of a number of those kind of market trends that are happening, and we're very much seen by our customers as being the enabler for them to then actually build in a more sustainable way. The sustainability piece for 23, I think, is going to be absolutely key. We've published some trends that talk a bit more about some of the key topics there, but it's not just about making your data center facilities or your critical facilities operate as efficiently as possible. The whole design ethos associated with sustainability is around how that facility is run, what it can offer back to the local community in terms of, like I said, utilizing some of those byproducts and so on and so forth. And I think that, data centers on the whole are becoming ever more, there's a heightened public awareness of them and how they're featuring. But what we can't get away from is their absolute fundamental requirement to enabling society in itself to evolve, right? They're almost a utility now in terms of that need for data and the purpose that they serve. And that's naturally why the light will be shone more so on them, and therefore we need to get ahead of the game in ensuring those sustainable practices are being utilized now, and we're keeping ahead of the curve.
Okay, you gave me a lot of food for thought. As I was going through questions in my head, you answered the next question.
Sorry.
No. I'm still gonna dissect some of them, especially the public opinion and the sustainability side. I think that's very important.
Sure.
But maybe a painful one to take out of the way, because we still live in a very uncertain times. We still got the biggest conflict in Europe since the Second World War. We've got a looming recession with inflation just going off the roof. So at least the beginning of next year could be very challenging in many aspects. From what you hear from clients, do you think or you see people kind of delaying a little bit their projects or going a bit back to the drawing table and rethinking some expansions on the back of those things?
Honestly, no.
Okay.
We don't anticipate a significant slowdown. I think that one of the, if you think about the role of a data center, it's to host an IT platform, it's to host a network, and the nature of how companies, enterprises are evolving their working practices is to autonomize, make use of AI or just smarter, more automated ways of working fundamentally, and that is always going to have a dependency on on an IT platform, and that IT platform by its very nature is going to have to be resilient, and therefore there's going to be a requirement for critical engineered solutions, the likes of which we provide. So at the moment, no, we don't see a particular slowdown. In many ways, we are looking at diversifying some of our market coverage, but that's to capture new areas that are developing, where we see that there's actually a growing need for our products. So for us, the number of user cases that are developing within the market outside of just the classic data center co-location, hyperscale type space is increasing. And so in terms of the strength of the data center industry, the critical infrastructure industry, whatever you want to call it, it is by nature incredibly resilient, I think, and therefore it's a good place to be with obviously, like you say, some darker events potentially looming over the hill, and what could be a bit of a difficult start, for us all next year.
Okay, hopefully not as badly surprising as it was at the beginning of this year. I was going to say, from what you say, is it correct to assume that then Vertiv is also going to start focusing on other industries? And if so, which ones are you going to focus on? If you can share.
So there's I think if we were talking about some of the sort of evolved edge or user cases that I mentioned a minute ago, I mean, edge is a really interesting realm. Edges, we've talked about edge for a number of years, and we've seen you've done it very well. We've seen players, new players certainly becoming more established, and some of that is conforming more towards some of the more classic data center type work we do, and some of it is very new and it's very innovative. So I think we continue to have a heightened focus there, and we see our business growing. I think actually within the sort of subsegments of enterprise, we see the likes of manufacturing, be it new manufacturing facilities, the likes of which you might reference maybe the gigafactories that are coming online across various places across Europe, or the retail segment where again that autonomization of how they're working, the sort of networks that they build that connect their stores with distribution centers and so on and so forth. All of these kind of enterprise type outfits are seeing a growing need for resilient IT infrastructure, and that's where we come into play. So without disclosing our full sales strategy for next year, it's kind of it's a really, really key piece for us. I think that diversification, and it presents great opportunity. And having worked with some of the most esteemed sort of data center providers for decades now, we have a huge amount of expertise that we can bring to the table with clients that perhaps are a bit less well versed, particularly in the resilience and critical aspect of some of their deployments. So there's good opportunity for us there.
Okay, just picking up on the public opinion, then we will close as well, because we don't want to take too long of your time. But just on the public opinion side of things, because you operate in very interesting markets, very big markets. They attract a lot of attention from the local communities where the infrastructure is built, especially Dublin, where we've seen a bit of a backlash with the local populations. And then often this is down to the lack of education on what these infrastructures do for the wider economy, not just for the local community economy, but the wider economy, the GDP. How is Vertiv going to help with those conversations within the markets you operate? Because you operate in very big markets and in also upcoming markets in the region that you covered. So how do we ensure that what happened with those doesn't happen with the new ones?
Yeah, you mentioned, I think you mentioned kind of that key point really, which is education, and that's kind of understanding. I think the one thing about the sort of data centers is people don't necessarily understand the true extent of what it is they facilitate in our day-to-day lives, right? It's kind of it's something that's really, really key. We couldn't be talking to ourselves in the way that we are currently. I couldn't be answering my phone. I couldn't have the emails buzzing away on my phone in my pocket. They're underpinning, pretty much how, a large parts of how society, it sort of, I say operates, but you kind of understand what I mean in this day and age. I think what's absolutely critical in terms of, like you say, bridging that gap between the heightened awareness and then the understanding of what they need is the sustainable agenda, and educating people on how yes, the necessity for these types of for these types of facilities isn't going to decrease. It's not going to go away. And actually, data center operators or developers and various types have been building these their facilities to be as efficient as possible from day one, because it's just logical that you simply try and reduce the power consumption associated with them and making them more efficient. But I think where the journey will go on in terms of that, the relationship with the wider public view of data centers and and how society perceives them will be one of actually, data centers starting to evidence what value they can bring to society, not just in terms of supporting, mobile networks and IT platforms and so on, but actually that byproduct element and seeing how they can be used to supplement it. So it could be that, you're taking the waste heat rejection that comes from a data center and use it to supplement, your local district heating system. And that's something that we've seen in a few different places in the Nordics, right? Local councils are saying to data center developers, yeah, you can build, but well, let's interface this with some of the local infrastructure so that the local residents are benefiting from the development that you're going to be deploying. And I think we'll start to see that more and more. Again, it's kind of one of the key reasons the Nordics have kind of been ahead of the curve on it, and we'll continue to see that strengthen there. But I think we'll see that more so across the Northern Europe region, and it's down to companies like us and many of the clients that we work with to promote what we're doing well in that space. And at the moment, there's a huge amount of activity that goes on there that we just don't talk about enough. So yeah.
So there's a lot of good use cases that are not being explored with the wider public. And then just to quickly kind of close our conversation, I was going to ask, if we look into the Northern Europe market, the one that you cover, where is Vertiv going to do the biggest investment next year? So it could be either build something or hire more staff. Where's the attention going to go to within the region you operate? As in the most attention is going to, not.
Yeah, I mean, look, the Nordics is really critical for us, of course, and that is as that market continues to grow, and as long as we're successful there, of course, we will continue to invest to ensure that we're not just in it for the sell, right? We go when somebody buys our products or our solutions or a full turnkey prefabricated data center from us, that we enter into a relationship that will last decades with that customer through the servicing and the contract and remedial works that we will have to do on the equipment that we sell over many more years. And you can't do that without having the right presence, within an organization. It's the key part of our deliverables and how customers, will grade us in terms of our effectiveness to support them. So that's a really key aspect for us, for sure. I think, in terms of a broader kind of sort of Northern Europe play, the UK and Ireland, we're incredibly established. We are traditionally probably one of the larger regions of the EMEA, centered around the fact that we have obviously Dublin and London here. And it's about, I think, there really where our investment is going is into looking at optimization. We have a huge legacy estate with many of our customers, and a lot of these designs are in some ways limited in terms of their ability to optimize and improve on those efficiencies. But we are developing, have invested quite heavily in a number of tools and almost consultancy type services to look at these facilities and support our clients to understand where they may be able to make improvements and how they can, realize, returns on investment for some of those optimization projects that they may look to embark on. So it's kind of an evolved offering from, the hardware and servicing of said hardware to actually looking at facilities and kind of helping clients and educating them on actually where they could be operating in perhaps a smarter and ultimately more efficient and more sustainable way. So that's a really key piece for us as well, I think, within the region over the next couple of years.
The B2B circular economy. And then I was going to ask, if people want to learn more about what Vertiv is doing in Northern Europe, and then even if they want to reach out as well, how can they do so?
Yeah, I mean, there's obviously feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn, of course. They can contact us through the website and so on and so forth. But we have presence at a number of industry events, and we actually do a number of different technical seminars as well on various different subjects. Some of them are looking at deep diving into particular technical topics. Some of them are sort of more high level, consultation type led seminars that we do. So we have a host of different ways in which we can interact and help educate with some of our clients. They just simply need to get in touch, and then we'll make sure they're directed through to the right people.
Yeah, the white papers that I've read are always very interesting, and the webinars as well. So I'm sure it'll be worth checking them out. Alex, Brew, thank you so much for your time and joining us today. As for our viewers, thank you for tuning into JSA TV Live, and don't forget to check our social channels for more content. Until next time, happy networking.
Thanks, John. Much appreciated.